There's a lot of big prices on Monday's Major League Baseball card, but how do we avoid eating all that chalk? You're going to find that out right here on First Pitch. Dan Alexander with you, and joining me are two of the best. Such a great show on Friday. We're running it back. Steve Merril, Bryan Leonard joining me here today. Gentlemen, I'm excited for another week here of First Pitch, hopefully getting some winners while you're hanging out with us. Make sure you hit that like button and you are subscribed so you know when we go live here. Steve, let's start here with one of those big prices. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Chris Sale, the lefty, is on the mound for the Atlanta Bravos this evening. But this game, in my opinion, Steve, has all the makings of an under battle, at least in the first five, because Randy Vasquez's numbers haven't been too bad out of the gate either. So a big price on the Bravos. Nice take back on the road side of the San Diego Padres. How does Steve Merril think we should be betting this one?
Yes, this is actually the second of a doubleheader. The first game is going on live right now as a 12:20 Eastern start, but I wanted to talk about this second game, just big picture Atlanta Braves, and you stole my thoughts, Dan. It's got underwritten all over it because the Braves have been on an historic underrun for the most part, and it finally got snapped. I think they'd had like one over in the last several weeks, and it finally got snapped yesterday against the Padres when it went over 8.5 with 10 runs. But it wasn't Atlanta. They had one run for the fifth straight game. They had one run or less, and they've had 2 runs or less for 7 straight games until today. Now, that game is live right now as we're doing the show live, top of the 6th, but they have 5 runs. So maybe that's the breakout sign. We'll have to see. But big picture, I want to talk about the Braves because it's a great handicapping lesson for baseball in general. 162 games. We go through these ebb and flows. You know, we saw the White Sox start 3-22 and then be the most profitable team in baseball for a couple weeks. We saw the A's, get off to a nice start, even though they only won 50 games last year. We saw the Astros and the Rays get off the bad starts, even though they've been dominant teams for years. Both are starting to turn the corner. And the Braves and Dodgers, by far the most talented offensive lineups. And Atlanta's really been underachieving. And that's where you see these monster under type of trends happen. And Atlanta really was on a historic underrun here up until it went over yesterday, but they only had 1 run. So once again, I think we see a little bit of regression. Yes, they're getting some runs in this afternoon game, but I don't want to see it's the buy sign quite yet for a team that's been over 90% under for the last month. I think Atlanta team total under, game under as well. And it doesn't look like we've had a lot of bullpen usage yet either. So I think that'll bode well for the under also in this night game at 6 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. That was the initial standout to me. Now, as Steve said, it does concern me a little bit that we're seeing some life from these Atlanta bats, but just because it happens in game 1 doesn't mean it'll happen in game 2. Hop below in the comments. Let us know if you have any live sweats you got going in that San Diego-Atlanta game 1 and how maybe you think you might be betting game 2. And shout out to the chat. If you're joining us live, hop below and let us know what your best bets are or what games you want our experts here to touch upon throughout the show. As I mentioned, Bryan Leonard joining us, WT.buzz/BL. And Bryan, you have slated wanting to talk about this Washington Nationals team. Saw a lot of them over the weekend, did I, but we have no Phillies to talk about here today, unfortunately, on a Monday show. But this Twins and Washington game, this is where you're seeing a pretty big price on the road team. You got Pablo Lopez on the mound, looking like Mitchell Parker going to be coming up for the Nats. So what do you think, that this price justified for the away team, or does that just give us more value here on the home side?
Yeah, before we get to the game I was going to handicap, Steve talked about it at the end when he talked about the bullpens. Keep in mind, his current score is 5-1. If it's a 3-run game, you're going to see the key pitchers for Atlanta in the first game, which means you may not see them in the second game. So that's something to keep an eye on. You're probably in no hurry to bet that second game, but something to keep an eye on. And that's the thing you always got to look at when you're looking at double headers. But heading back to the non-conference game here, the Minnesota and Washington contest, 6 straight losses for the Twins, who have been extremely streaky in the early going. Minnesota offense has scored 9 combined runs in those 6 defeats. And we remember just a couple of weeks ago, Minnesota was the hottest team in Major League Baseball, which goes back to what Steve talked about. You're looking at Major League Baseball, and you're playing 162 games a year, and everybody's going to go on streaks. So you need to find those streaks and be able to take advantage of them early on. in those streaks, and you can get some good runs on that. But right now, Minnesota's not hitting well. They were outscored 14-1 in the Yankees series, and Minnesota failed to win a single game against their chief division rival, Cleveland, including giving up the game-winning home run in the bottom of the last inning in Cleveland yesterday. So Minnesota's a team that just a week ago was very happy with themselves. Now, not so much. I do like the pitcher for Minnesota, Pablo Lopez. He's been very good this season with a 28.7 to 4.0 strikeout to walk ratio. And his xERA is only 288. But the back of the bullpen has been a concern with Yohan Durang now blowing back-to-back saves, including that walk-off homer last night. I do like this Twins bullpen. They're very good. Very similar to Houston, where Houston's bullpen started the season struggling, but now they're all starting to come together. And what do you know? The Astros are starting to win. Bullpens, back of the bullpens are very important when it comes to Major League Baseball. I don't want to lay this number on the road, even though as much as I like Lopez because of the way the Minnesota offense is playing. Washington was just swept by Philadelphia, so things are not rosy for the Nationals either. But we do like the way Mitchell Parker has started his Major League Baseball career. He has a 3.09 ERA, 1.13 whip thus far, and we've always liked to back young lefties in their initial runs in Major League Baseball. For some reason, they have a lot more success than rookie right-handers. And if you can get on one of these guys coming out of the minor leagues and run him for three or four starts, you get some pretty good numbers. And those that have backed Mitchell Parker so far have had that. When you look at his game logs against teams with quality offenses, he's played the Dodgers, the Astros, the Rangers, and the Orioles. 4 pretty good offenses. In those games, he's gone 23 innings, allowing just 7 earned runs. If you take a look at tonight's game, all the back-end relievers of the Nationals bullpen will be available, so they'll have their 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guys. I like Washington here. Either bullpen set up better than Minnesota's, and you're catching them at home. Both teams on losing streaks. I like the way Parker's been pitching against really good competition, and this Minnesota offense, as I mentioned, really struggling right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you had this one circled, Bryan, because this game was also on my short list, just thinking that, yes, Minnesota, they get the top billing, obviously, with the 0-6 run that they're on. Seeing them as favorites is extremely head-scratching, and sure, you have to not talk about that losing streak and think about the road trip for Washington that ended up 2-7, but the difference on these two streaks are Washington, even in that game yesterday against the Phillies, where the Phillies ended up pulling away, you see the lopsided scoreboard, 11-5. The story in that is the 5 runs that came across for Washington. They're at least still were able to pick up some runs here, sure, at a hitter's ballpark in Philadelphia, but Minnesota, the runs production just has not been there. So another thing that I was thinking was potentially a Minnesota team total under. I just didn't love enough what I was seeing with the starting pitching to get there on that one. But great breakdown from Bryan, and one that I am in agreement with. Hop below in the comments and let us know how you're looking to bet that game. Guys, we'll hit on this one real quick, and if you're watching us on the rewatch, maybe you can get some live information on this one, but it goes in less than an hour, so I want to make sure our guys tuning in here live have a chance of getting in this one. Jeff McNally says, hey guys, need a pick in this Chicago White Sox and Toronto Blue Jays game. Talk about a price, Steve. 205 and climbing in some spots back in the home side. Prezes, Toronto Blue Jays against Adam Trigger, of course, is Chicago White Sox. This one was a cross-off for me, seeing it was an early game. I don't know if either of you guys have more. Steve, we'll start with you.
Yep. First of all, as you and I know from last call Saturday, it's Kelly Stewart's Chicago White Sox. Who wears short shorts? The 1976 White Sox wear short shorts, and Gardner Minshew loves it. Boy, that was fun. Go back and watch last call. Our producer, Dan, had some on-the-spot graphics as well. Thumbs up if you like short shorts, and comment below. Daytime start here, 3:07 Eastern. What I'll say real quickly on the White Sox, I'm glad we brought this game up because I was talking about them earlier. 3-22 start, and then they're the best moneymaker in baseball for a couple weeks. Well, they've lost 3 straight, and they're 2-5 their last 7. Single-digit hits even during the winning run. They were getting it done with pitching. The hitting has never been there, though. All season long, they're averaging just over 2 runs a game, batting in the low 200s. If you look at this current losing run here, they have had 2 runs or less 5 of the last 7, or 3 runs or less 6 of the last 7. So I'd be careful with the White Sox. I think you missed that little opportunity to make some money with one of the worst teams in baseball.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, when those little streaks happen, you hop in on them. And then when you see it start going the other way, you flip the script. I mean, Bryan, you're our resident dog whisperer. As Eric D pointed out in the chat, the cat was good luck for us on Friday. So maybe a cat whisperer as well. But, I mean, this dog's hard to get behind. Don't you think? I mean, this is an ugly dog we're talking about.
Well, it's an ugly dog when it comes to offense. Not such an ugly dog when it comes to Eric Fetty. Since he's came over back from the East, he's been very good. And we're looking at a Toronto team total of 4.5 under -125 or so. That would be the way I would look at this. And I did like your analysis for the Washington game there. I like the team total there also. Like Eric Fetty literally could be the better pitcher in this game here, even though Berrios gets more of he's much more well known. But Toronto's offense starting to play a little bit better. The first baseman's starting to hit, not hitting for power, but Toronto's had their best players on offense all having slow starts to the season. Eventually, it'll wake up, I would say, in warmer temperatures, but Toronto plays in a dome, so it shouldn't make any difference in that regard. But Eric Fetty, I think, can hold down Toronto, especially if you look at the first half here. We're looking at Toronto at 2.5 -145 in the first 5 innings. I would play that under. I think they're going to have some troubles here against Fetty. And that may be a way to get to the dog in this one without having to worry about the back end of the Chicago bullpen, which they have talent. They've got 3 guys back there that you could trust on an individual basis, but overall they don't seem to put in the 3 when all 3 of them play. One of them collapses. It's just the way this has always been for the White Sox so far this year. So that's the way I would look at this one. I'm not big on the Toronto offense right now against Fetty, who's doing really well.
Yeah, I think because you see Berrios on the bump, it kind of gets underscored what you're seeing from Fetty. So I'm with you. There was just one I saw it was the early game. Crossed it off on my list here, but there you go. We hit it for you, and you can fast forward through that part if you need to, if you're watching on the rewatch. But a game that goes at 6:10, and Bryan, I'm going to throw this one right back to you because a guy who you've had a great read on this year has been Ben Lively. Cleveland opposing the Mets here. A lot of folks in the chat want us to chat on this game because they like that plus money with the away side, and Tyler McGill on the mound there for the Mets. What do you think on this game, Bryan? A team that you know well.
Yeah, McGill coming back from injury, so he hasn't pitched in a while. So he's probably going to be on a pitch count here. I like this Mets team. I think they're better than what their records show. Francisco Lindor, first game back in Cleveland since being traded to the Mets. One of the most beloved players in Cleveland Indians history. He'll get a good hand tonight. It's not game starts at 3:10 Pacific, 6:10 Eastern, so make sure you get out early. But that'll be a little bit emotional for him. Blake Lively's been this guy that he's pitched much better this year than he had in the past. He's changed his pitch count. Basically, what he's throwing now is a little bit different than what he's done in the past. We've seen a lot of this out of the Red Sox. They throw more breaking balls this year, and they're having a lot of success. Lively's he's been a fringe major leaguer his entire career, so. For him to be able to make that change to help himself really can prolong his career. We've seen this many times in Major League Baseball over the years. So I think he's going to pitch well here against the Mets. We're looking at a total of 9 to the under. It's gone up a little bit since the opener of 8. So money's come in on the over in this game, but I kind of like the under. Yep. Cleveland didn't do well until the last inning last night. So they're hitting a little bit over their projections right now, and I don't think the offense is very good. So if I had to play this one, I would take a look at that under 9 at -120.
Yeah, and for me, and I understand why the chat maybe wanting to hop in here on the Mets, but with that 3-7 run that they're on and the major question mark with McGill coming back. That's why I just couldn't quite get there with the Mets. The under, or the total there kind of makes sense to me. Hey, if you believe in, revenge angles or return angles, returning home, why not maybe look at Francisco Lindor total bases over 1.5 at 105. You could play his hits if you want to lay minus 260 on over a half. I'm not in the business of doing that, Steve, but again, like kind of what I said, Steve, just too many question marks on this Mets side that sure, maybe a positive run is coming for him, but I'm not going to try and hop in a game one and try and pick my spot with him here. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, the biggest edge you have as a sports bettor is that the odds makers have to put numbers up on every game. We don't have to play every game. We can
say
pick
that
our
all
spots.
the time. Yep.
And this is a perfect example of that, in my opinion, because there's a ton of uncertainty in this game, largely on the Mets side, because like Bryan said, McGill coming back from injury, he's only made one start all season. That was on March 31st, back on the opening week. So I don't know what I'm going to get from McGill. Nobody knows what we're going to get. I think he's right. It'll likely be a limited outing, which means the Mets bullpen will be involved. They've had a good bullpen this year. And then we look at Lively. He's only made it into the sixth inning twice this season in 6 starts, but the Cleveland bullpen has been as good as any in baseball. So both bullpens are solid. I would not disagree with the under for that reason. But then again, you look at the Mets. Not only do we have the uncertainty with their starting pitcher, but they're in excellent offensive form. Yes, they played Miami, but they got shut out on Friday in Miami. And then they came back and had 16 runs on 27 hits Saturday and Sunday. So they're hitting the ball well. But then, like Bryan said, Cleveland's been a very poor offensive team. And I pointed that out last week here on the show. They had the 3 straight wins with 7 runs each. They had 5, 8, and 7 hits in those games. That's fool's gold. And they're still a team that barely gets above 7 or 8 hits a game. So, yes, the under makes sense. But then again, this has been a heavy sharp money play. As Bryan said, 8 up to 9. Not just 8.5 up to 9. It opened 8. It's now up to that key number of 9. It's actually the highest total on the board. So the sharp money likes the over. Maybe they know something about McGill.
Yeah, I'm with you, Steve. Definitely, sometimes the prices can tell you exactly maybe what the market is thinking, and see where that money is going in that one. But the chat definitely thinking Tyler with a great breakdown, or Eric on it with a great breakdown on this one. Mets stink. Period. And Roger Long, they are the Mutts. I mean the Mets. No, I mean the Mutts. So the chat not really wanting to find many buy signs here on the Mets. One folks, Titan CT, saying, hey, maybe when Senga comes back, that's where we hop in with them. They get a nice boost there. It definitely could be, but this one, again, one I feel like this is a tricky slate that maybe seems easy on the surface, and then when you start diving in, it gets a little bit tougher. But the folks want us here, guys, and while you're hanging out with us, make sure you hit that like button. And in the chat, you can hit the hearts. We appreciate that, but scroll down just a little bit, hit that little thumbs up. Greatly appreciate that. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that bell and you're subscribed here to the channel. But we can't talk about my Phillies, which is my favorite team. So we'll talk about the chat's favorite team every show, and that's the Brew Crew. And the price seems a little bit short, Steve, if you think about you just handicap this as a good team versus bad team as they're visiting the Miami Marlins. Miami Marlins haven't been horrible in their last 10, chugging along at a nice, easy 500. It's Joe Ross, it's Ryan Weathers, and a decent price here on Milwaukee. Can you get there with the road favorite, or how do you see this one shaking out?
Well, we talk about a lot on the Friday show when I do it with you about, that game one situations, favorites do better in general, especially on Fridays because they're almost always game ones. And then the sweet spot is road favorites. And I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm always looking for a reason in game ones to play road favorites because, first of all, they're usually focused against a bad team. They don't overlook them. Maybe they get complacent after a couple easy wins, but not in game one. And then on top of that, as the road favorite, we get a 20, 30, 40 cent discount sometimes off if they were at home just because they're not batting last. It's a vastly overrated angle, though, I think, especially when there's a superior team. So Milwaukee qualifies here as about a $1.35 road favorite. But you brought up a good point, Dan. And when I was looking at this game, this is what left it off my card, is the fact that Miami is playing good baseball. They were awful to start the season. In fact, we talk about how the Houston Astros had that terrible start. Well, the Astros were only the second biggest money burner in baseball this season. It was the Miami Marlins up until the past week. And now they have quietly won 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 7. Came back down to earth against the Mets on the 19th, yesterday on Sunday, a 7-3 loss. But keep in mind, those 2 wins before I talked about the 8-0 shutout on Friday. Well, the Mets had 9 runs on 15 hits Saturday, but the Marlins had 10 runs on 13 hits. So the Marlins had 18 runs on 26 hits before yesterday's loss. So they're in good current form. That's why I was kind of conflicted on this game. Normally, I'd look for a reason to play Milwaukee as the better team on the road game 1. But I think the Marlins could be in a little bit of that White Sox mini streak right now that we often see. And they are due to start winning. This was a playoff team last year that's been the biggest money burner in baseball. So it'd be the Marlins or pass for me over the next week until I see otherwise. That's why I'm passing this game.
Wow, Marlins or pass look, and quietly too, Bryan, in that last 10-game stretch where they're chugging along at a 500 pace. They've also been playing over ball. I think it's like 75% of those games playing towards the over, largely due to the fact that that they give up runs, but they've also been putting them up as well. So this one has seen a little bit of over money coming in this one. Any thoughts on the total, or for you too, like Steve was thinking, this is a one-sider pass for you in this Marlins and Milwaukee game?
Well, you mentioned the total, and that's the way I would attack this. Both Ross and Weathers have been mediocre pitchers in their careers. When healthy, they've done pretty well. But if you take a look at their career whips, they're both in about the 1.4 range, which is way too high. You want 1.2 or lower. So they're going to put some players on base here. Line opened 8.5, under 25. Now we're seeing 8 to the over a little bit. I kind of like the over. You kind of touched on that in your introduction here. Miami's hitting better than they had earlier in the season. They seem to be much more comfortable at this point, but I don't trust the pitching staff in the back end that well. They're still trying to figure out who the closer is. Puck got the save the other day, but Miami's bullpen is not one of the strongest in baseball right now. Milwaukee is a team. It's been a very good hitting team all season long. They've done well. I've talked about how their defense is very good, one of the best defenses in baseball, but they're another one of these teams with a lot of guys who play on a consistent basis. A lot of pitch hitters. They will, they're going against the lefty here in Weather, so you see a lot of right-handers, but they'll play the guys on the bench, and they've had a lot of success in that regard. So with the total now down to 8, I think there's a little bit of value here on the over in this one. And I just wanted to touch, we talked about the Mets earlier. Perez, the closer, has been just blown 2 saves in a row. He will not close tonight. They're going to give him sort of what Baltimore has done with Kimbrel for the last week, put him in earlier when there's not so much pressure on him. But he'll be back in the closing role very soon. And just an update, Atlanta and San Diego. San Diego just scored their second run, so they're in the top of the 7th. It is a safe situation now at 5-2. Keep an eye on that.
Yep. Yeah, I love that call out there. That's part of the greatness of being live right here on the WagerTube channel, and whether you watch live or on the rewatch, make sure you throw these guys a like before you go over to WagerTalk.com and check them out. Tomorrow, we're going to have half-price packages locked and loaded. That's a little special on Tuesday, so it's something to keep a pin in and check back. But these guys are locked and loaded with best bets tonight that you can check out over at their page. We also have best bets coming up here on the show. Steve Merril is going to talk Dodgers and D-backs. Yamamoto on the mound in that one. Bryan is going to be taking a look at the total in Detroit at Kansas City. So stay by for best bets here. Guys, 3 games that we haven't touched upon, and we can do them in kind of rapid order here because Eric D in the chat always coming up with parlays. This one doesn't have a cute name for it quite yet, but he says Rays, Cardinals, Yankees. Which one blows up the parlay is the question for me, or is that clean across? The one that looks like maybe a little bit of a buy sign, it's hard for me to not want to take plus money on the O's. So that would be one that I maybe have a little bit of concern with. But Steve, again, I'll repeat him. It's Rays, Cardinals, and Yankees. That's the 3-teamer from our man Eric. Any thoughts on what could spoil the parlay for him?
Yeah, I mean, with the Yankees obviously at home are tough to go against. They've been an excellent team this season. The Rays, as I mentioned earlier, a team that started slow but have been playing better baseball. In fact, they've won 4 out of 5, and their pitching's got a lot better. Just like Houston, their bullpen numbers are now reasonable, and that was Tampa's biggest problem. But Tampa offensively has been challenged. Boston's also an excellent bullpen. I think the under in that Rays game could be worth a look, but I wouldn't disagree with any of the teams he mentioned.
How about you, Bryan? Any of those concern you? I know these aren't teams that we had slated here to talk about on the show, but whenever we have a 3-team or the guy who hits them all the time in the chat, I have to bring this up here. So any thoughts on either 3 of those sides for you?
Yeah, I'll probably pass. Houck's been good. I think just about every start he's had this year, so you hate to go against him. Seattle's a much better hitting team on the road than home. We've talked about the batter's eye there, and Gilbert's an up-and-coming pitcher. I would prefer Gilbert over Stroman, to be honest with you. But then again, the Yankee Stadium, it's hard to beat. And when we get to the Baltimore game, I thought of it just like you did. It's hard to go against the Orioles, who are probably the most stacked team in Major League Baseball. The pitching advantage goes to Gray here. He's gotten off to a terrific start for St. Louis, but we've got a Cardinals team that still hasn't put it all together, and they'll come out and they look like they break out of it one game, and then the next day they get shut out. So it's tough to back those teams in a favorite situation. So good luck to you. I'm not going to be on any of them. I'll root for you, but I'm passing on all 3 of those games.
Yeah, and again, just back to that Baltimore game, too, you probably see the price the way that it is because obviously St. Louis is the home side, but because of how terrific Gray has been. Let me just pull these numbers. 11 runs, 15 hits, 11 innings over his last 2 outings. So, sure, his season-long numbers are great, but also if he ends up going deep, that's a huge boon for this St. Louis team because they better not hope they have to go to that bullpen, who was just ripped. It was 11-3 was that final yesterday in the Red Sox game. So those are those same arms that they're going to have to trot out that just got pieced up. So yes, if you just look at the starting pitching, the number makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. But there's 9 innings in this game, and unless we got a no-no beauty pitched by Gray, we're going to see this bullpen at some point. Maybe this is a live total that I try and hop in on, or a game total if it starts going low and it makes low enough, hop in on the over, because maybe there's going to be runs tacked more towards the back end of this game is the main eye. But I can't bet against Baltimore. So it'd be take that plus money or pass for me. I'm sorry, Eric D. That would be the buster for me. Hop below in the comments and let us know what you think about the 3-teamer, as FB coach having my back saying Kremer ain't no scrub either. So a little TLC action. Ain't no scrub. A scrub is a guy who can't get no love from me. How about that timely reference, gentlemen? All right, before I start singing another TLC song, guys, let's talk some best bets here. Steve Merril, let folks know what you got locked and loaded over at WagerTalk.com, and let us know how we could potentially find some value, because laying minus 235 or more with the Dodgers, not really in my bankroll against the D-backs here tonight. So how do we get down on this team and make it make sense?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you how to play the Dodgers to get a much more reasonable price and make some money in that late game. That is my free play for tonight. It's on my page right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, with analysis, some pitcher projection ratings for both starters as well. So I'm going to give you the free play here for that late game between the Dodgers and D-backs. But go read the analysis on my page, because I have a free play every day for everyone. It's a great way to build your bankroll. They're games that are just a bit outside from making the cut, so they do quite well. I do have one official client best bet, though. That's a game that is stronger tonight, and that's available right now for everybody on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Get the single play for $25, or how about get the play tonight and the next 6 days a night, 7 days a night for just $49. That works out to just $7 a day for every baseball best bet, and that offer is good through today only, I believe. That special price is going down at midnight. It's on the drop-down menu on the right-hand side, the baseball packages. You'll see the 7-day for a discount, just $49. So single play tonight for $25, or get that 7-day while it's still available for just $49. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Dodgers minus 220, minus 230, as high as minus 240. Nope, I don't like laying that juice. Let's play the run line, minus 1.5, minus $1.15. Much more reasonable price with the Dodgers here. As you can see on the screen, we're getting almost a 130-cent discount, and they just got to win by 2 or more instead of 1 or more, and they likely do. They've had some closer games this season, but over the last several years, I've talked about it on a lot of shows, you play the Dodgers run line or you play the other team outright at plus money, and you've made a lot of money doing that. I like the Dodgers in this game, so I default to the run line. The Dodgers offense hasn't been quite as explosive as you would expect over the past few weeks, but let's look at their season stats. At home, 27 games, they're still averaging 5.5 runs a game and batting .255 as a team. Those are still really good numbers. This is still an extremely talented offense. starting pitching edge clearly goes to the Dodgers here, as Arizona's going with a career reliever. So this is a bullpen game basically for the D-backs. Dodgers have the better starter, and they have the better bullpen and the better offense. It all adds up to a solid home win here by multiple runs. Dodgers -1.5, -115 run line, a game that just missed the cut tonight because I've got one game that's even stronger. Client best bet tonight, steamroller blowout. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, and also I think it can't be overstated, just the fact that I feel like anytime the Dodgers have a chance at landing on the D-backs after how last season ended, they're going to do it all year long.
Great point.
Yeah,
great point.
Yeah, this is something
playoff sweep revenge.
Yeah,
I like it.
Exactly. So is it only, this Dodgers team is rolling. We have buy sign. Like, this is one that makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. And I don't love laying the 1.5, but in a situation like this, Steve, it's where it makes just too much sense. So check out Steve over at WagerTalk.com. Get the true best bet locked and loaded. But one that I'm going to be placing on my card as well is laying that 1.5. Hop below in the comments and let us know if you have any trepidations on that one, or if you're going to be riding with us. Bryan, Leonard will get the final word here as far as the best bets go. Detroit and Kansas City. The total is what is intriguing, my man Bryan Leonard. Let the folks know what you got locked and loaded over at WagerTalk.com and how we're going to be betting this one.
Yeah, the two plays I have in Major League Baseball today are the two that I'm giving out right here on the show, so nothing to buy today. But I do like the NBA card for tomorrow. I will have an NBA game as well as a full slate of baseball action for tomorrow. And I do want to touch on Steve's bet here. Slade Ciccone will be coming in, and he will be pitching today. They're going to use Multiply for the first inning, so they get a lefty up against Ohtani, which is a smart move. And so he'll pitch the first inning, and then Slade Ciccone will pitch the rest as far as he can go the rest of the game there. So that's why they have done that, and I think it's a smart thing to do. I'm going to take a look at this Detroit-Kansas City game here, and I'm going to look at the total. I really like what both teams did in the offseason when it comes to their starting staffs. They went out and brought in starting pitchers who could take advantage of these home ballparks, which is something you should always do. You could always take advantage of your home ballpark because you're playing 81 games there every season. And these are the two of the best home run suppressing stadiums in Major League Baseball. Consider neither team really has major offensive home run talent. It's smart moves by both teams, especially Kansas City. In that regard, a lot of the players for the Detroit, the starters, have been in the system, but they did bring in Flaherty this year, and he's worked out terrific for them. So they're all both on the similar thought process here on trying to win those home games in a low-scoring fashion. Reese Olson has really come into his own this year. Only once all season has he permitted more than 2 earned runs in any game, and that was 6 weeks ago. His last 6 starts, Olson has allowed just 5 earned runs in 37 1/3 innings. He's pitched terrific. He's a guy that they've wanted to put in the rotation since they drafted him, and now he's got to that point where he's got his spot. Don't blow it. Stick to it. And I think he'll have a lot of success that way. Michael Wacha is also a guy who, in this career, he's given up a lot of home runs. The league launch angle this season is 12.2 degrees. If you go back the last 5 years for Wacha, every year it's been higher than 12.2 degrees. His early career is more of a ground ball pitcher, but for some reason, as he's aged, he's given up more home runs, more fly balls, which is always a concern. But it shouldn't be a concern in this ballpark that doesn't allow a lot of home runs. When you take a look at this game right here, you've got to be able to find spots to back Wacha, and I look to do that at home. But because he's going up against Olson, who's also very familiar with these surroundings, I like this game to go under the total. Wacha's been able to keep people off balance his entire career with low exit velocity. Hard hit rate is low. So we got 2 pitchers that pitch very well in this surroundings, in this Kansas City ballpark, and we'll take the under in this game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game, 3-2 or so.
Under the key numbers, says our man Bryan, Leonard, Detroit, and Kansas City. Steve Merril looking at the Dodgers and the D-backs for his best bet, and he was laying the 1.5 with the Dodgers. You can check out the guy's true best bets over at WagerTalk.com. Big time shout out to the YouTube Shorts chat. We appreciate you over there. Race Krim, who was stopping by, he said, hey, I don't bet sports, but I subbed because I'm not watching Fortnite or some stupid slot machine game. So we got your back here, man. We appreciate it. And hey, who knows? You hang out long enough, you may just be sprinkling it on some sides and totals and props. Because what we do, we get you all the info you need to bet all the sports you love on a daily, no, and hourly basis here at Wager Talk TV. So we appreciate the subscription. Make sure you hit that bell if you haven't already. And while you're hanging out, hit that like button too. Big shout out to Bryan, Leonard. Big shout out to Steve Merril. We're going to be locked and loaded on another Tuesday edition, but you don't have to go far. We still got shows coming your way and daily content around the clock. Check out the links in the description below if you want to see more of that. If you're watching on the rewatch, you can click the video on your screen right this moment and keep getting that info you need and you know and you love here. We'll see you on Tuesday. Best of luck, everyone. See you next time.